discussing Tesla earnings Q1 2024. This was a very big call because the company is changing direction. It's going from EV manufacturing to autonomous EV manufacturing. I'm going to discuss the details of what that means. This has huge implications for organization. It has huge implications for investors and upside, downside risk, all of these things. This is a big shift. Investors have been, I think, correctly pointing out that, look, I mean, we have to reevaluate our investment. And this is not, this doesn't mean, this is not a bad thing. Actually, it's a good thing that a company is changing direction, is going with technology. Our fundamental thesis is that when these things happen when technology happens. So this is driven by technology, by knowledge creation. Technology is a sort of serendipitous element of the equation of wealth creation. You can't really predict when it happens, but when it happens, you better be ready to reap the rewards. And this is exactly what's happening here. What happened is that we had breakthroughs in AI, particularly in computer vision, and then later on in large language models. And the combination of computer vision and large language models is enabling a new area of robotics. So we have the ability now to build autonomous agents in the physical world because we can represent reality in a more semantic way, and that is good enough for robots to be able to move in the world. We have the first example is FSD, and of course, like everything in technology, this is just the beginning. So we have really three elements now that matter. One is AI, the other is manufacturing, and the third is Optimus. Let me just put this out of the way. We don't think Optimus is actually a big opportunity right now because the technology is not ready there. I'm going to explain why that is the case. Finally, I want to also talk a little bit generally about switching in the sense that, okay, when companies change direction, when we shift gears, or when companies like Tesla go from EV manufacturing to AEV manufacturing, that has huge implications on the cadre. People leave, people join. It's usually an opportunity for younger people to rise up the ranks. This is exactly what's happening with Tesla. So we have somebody like Drew Balino, who started as a 20-something, mechanical engineering grad at Tesla and became, maybe not a billionaire, but incredibly rich and famous because he rose up the ranks of an EV manufacturing company. The autonomous EV manufacturing company requires different skill sets. We will have maybe Ashok or people like along those lines raising up the ranks. We have younger people that we don't even know about that will rise up the ranks and deliver the goods that are necessary to fulfill against the mission of autonomous EV manufacturing at scale. So in general, I think it's an interesting question to how switching works. Like when do people switch? Why most people don't? If you take companies, OEMs, I mean, this is Clayton Christensen 101, right? We have disruption, we have the innovator's dilemma, we have reluctance to change with technology, which usually brings down an industry. The Polaroid moment, the Apple moment, the iPhone moment, all these moments are metaphors in Silicon Valley for reluctance to change, for letting others come into your market and basically destroy you. Like in the case of autonomous electric vehicles, we have the electric vehicle, which is already disrupting the regular vehicle market, even though right now maybe it doesn't seem like that because there is this macro situation right now that is damping demand for almost anything. But in general, we have already a disruption because electric vehicles are much lower cost as a total cost of ownership than the regular ICE vehicles. But then we add autonomy to that. It's going to change the market completely. There is no market right now for autonomous electric vehicles. So by definition, Tesla entering that market, they have 100% market share, and they will grow that market. And of course, there's an adjacency there. In other words, if you consume autonomous electric vehicles, you have no reason to consume regular cars anymore. The same way you had no reason to consume horses once you had a car, unless you chose to maybe have a horse as a hobby, like there's still the case today. So again, I think the switching, again, why do people switch? What is the demand for knowledge? What is the production of knowledge? Who chooses to produce the knowledge that is demanded versus who chooses to produce the knowledge that they're good at? This is a very different type of equation that needs to be fulfilled. These are all interesting questions. We don't have all the answers. These are questions as we go, and I think one of the definitions I have for a good earnings call is it makes me want to work. It makes me want to think and work, and this is one of those calls. It's not even on podcast. It's April 24, 2024. This is Krim Delco. For the day, the fund is up 8.5%. The market's up 1%. For the year, we're down 25.2%. The market is up 6%. We're underperforming by 31.2%. So the stock had a good reaction. That's why we were up. And the reason the good reaction came is probably for most of the reasons that we're not even going to discuss today, such as the company guy said that they're still going to have volume growth this year. That Q1 was an outlier in terms of higher inventory. That they think inventory will offset next quarter. So some of the big concerns were pushed out to the way. I think Musk said that they're in talks with one OEM for FSD, so that's good news. In general, I think it was a very uplifting, very inspiring earnings call, and that's very important in a situation like Tesla when the stock's down almost 50% year to date. So that's kind of on the stock reaction. There's plenty of resources online for people who are interested in details of why the stock is where it is. We're generally not interested in daily moves of the stock. Of course, we monitor it. We even start this podcast series every day with our return for the day and the year because it's important. We don't want to come across as the kind of fund that doesn't care about returns because somehow we're just there to tell stories. No. We're in the business of generating wealth, and wealth is generated on a daily basis and on a yearly and decadally basis. But it always starts with the day, and then we go from there, and it's a good gauge for where we stand. So let's talk about the call itself. Massive change in direction from EV to AEV. Manufacturing, okay, very important. EV manufacturing to AEV manufacturing. The manufacturing part is still important, and I'm going to dissect what that means. So what did EV manufacturing mean? EV manufacturing meant develop strategies for battery production at scale, powertrain efficiency, and general manufacturing, of course. Also speed, be able to build factories rapidly at scale, and also have high yields in the factories. Those were the things that Tesla really became very good at, and that's why the company is half a trillion worth of market cap. The next phase is autonomous EV manufacturing. So we have similar problems on the EV manufacturing side, but now we add the A to it, the autonomous. What the main change it's going to do, the car now is going to drive 5 times more. So if a car was built for 120,000 miles, it's now going to drive 600,000 miles. And that means that lower cost per mile. That also means it needs to last longer. And of course, the autonomy has to be solved. So we have lasting longer and autonomy. Those are the two key ingredients that this company now has to solve for the next 5 years. On the lasting longer side, there is engineering power. It's an engineering power already. But you could ask the question, why did Drew Balino leave if this type of skill is still required? Well, Drew Balino was really a battery guy. At least that's how he portrayed himself at Battery Day. And battery is not the key anymore because there is a massive oversupply of batteries in China. There is the ability to buy battery cells relatively low cost. There is also maybe a lack of competitiveness of the 4680 relative to other battery cells. There's the ability for battery cells to be integrated into a Tesla 4680 pack if necessary. In other words, companies like CATL have caught up or even surpassed Tesla in manufacturing low-cost batteries. So that's why that is not a key anymore. Producing the car is still key because making a Tesla, nobody can do that. And that's still a source of competitive advantage because we have lots of examples, NIO, BMW or whatever. All these companies suffer from the same problem, which is they can make a good car, but it's way too expensive to make it. They rely on third-party suppliers. There's not enough vertical integration, not enough iteration, and therefore they will never be able to catch up with Tesla at speed at that kind of speed that Tesla is progressing. So I would say this is definitely on the EV manufacturing side. Those things have stayed the same. What's changed is, again, the focus on batteries is a bit less because the battery problem has been solved. It's very similar in the solar industry. There was a time when solar cells, First Solar and SunPower, they were powerful companies because they had technology to make better solar cells. Solar cell manufacturing itself is really solved by the Chinese, and now we have solar plants, solar business model integration, larger scale stuff that is more important than solar. Now let's get back to the Tesla story. So the autonomous EV manufacturing side of things, that's a little bit different. What does autonomous mean? Autonomous means that we have AI now, we have full self-drive, we have a car that drives itself, that relieves people from having to drive the car. That has been solved, I would say, to a very large extent. We're using FSD every day. I think one of the most important quotes in the call was Musk said, if you want to understand this company, actually, if you want to invest in the company, you have to test drive FSD. And that to me is a statement of how important FSD is for the future of the company. Now, what does it take for FSD to continue succeeding? In our opinion, it requires one thing that is very important, which is semantic maps. And then we have to have more simulation and reinforcement learning and AlphaGo Zero type approaches towards the driving problem. So those are the kinds of things where we expect Tesla to get better at, and there's a necessity to get better at these things, because that's, in our opinion, where autonomous, embodied decision-making agents will go. Now, the beautiful thing about where we stand in terms of the arc of technology here is that we have, thanks to the massive innovation of transformers and now large language models, we have a semantic understanding of reality. And this is huge. This is massive, because the semantic understanding of reality allows a robot to navigate through nature with an understanding that is human-like. Whether it's the same exact understanding when it gets down to the matrices and neurons doesn't really matter. But as an emergent factor, the robot can do what a human can do. The robot can say, I don't want to turn left here because there's two kids playing on the street. That is not a good thing. I might as well just go a little bit further and then, make a bit of a detour. It's safer. That kind of semantic reasoning is possible now. It's possible. There is enough knowledge in terms of algorithms, in terms of compute, in terms of memory. It's doable. These are executable, problems that can be solved. So this is really exciting, I think, for us. And this is also why Tesla is going down that route. There has been a massive tectonic shift underlying the scientific and technological landscape of robotics. That's why Elon Musk is jumping on this bandwagon. It's not because he woke up and he wants to do this. It's because he can. And I spoke with Ken Goldberg just last week, a robotics professor at Berkeley, and he said that, look, Musk wants to turn his company into a robotics company. Why is he saying that? Because I'm sure he's seeing lots of hiring happening from his cadre or from his grad school cadre and all that, and that's a signal that there is something happening in this industry, and that's when wealth is created. Now, on the manufacturing side, there's this new vehicle platform. It's not 100% clear what that means in terms of, is it now going to be the $25,000 car? Is it going to be a single cast? Or I think it's going to be all of the above. And whether it's $25,000 or $30,000 car doesn't really matter. What really matters is that we lower the cost per mile. That means we have to make a car for maybe $30,000, $40,000, maybe $50,000, but a car that can go 500,000 miles. If I can go 500,000 miles with a car that costs $50,000 versus if I can go 200,000 miles with a car that costs $50,000, that's 50% less cost per mile. And this is really key. In our valuation on FSD, we have roughly $150,000 of savings in cost per mile. We have another about $100,000 in savings just based on time. So we have about $250,000 worth of savings. I believe, I could be wrong about this actually. Yeah, it's about $250,000 per car. So each car that you buy for $50,000 will save you about $250,000 in terms of real money spent on gasoline, maintenance, things along those lines, brakes, replacement, mechanics, and also time. This is why Musk is talking about this massive wealth creation. That's what AVs will do. They will bring, for every car, they will bring hundreds of thousands of dollars of value creation through savings. And the saving comes from time savings and fuel savings. In our model, we're pretty conservative on the time saving. We have about $85,000 on time saving. We have $250,000 on savings that come directly from the per mile saving. So have an autonomous car that drives 3 times more than a regular car, and you save on every mile. You save on fuel, and you save on time, maintenance, insurance. So that's where the value comes. Now, this is a bit of a circular reference here. In other words, I have savings per mile that are low, and then I multiply this by the miles driven. So there's a bit of a circular reference. I understand that. And maybe we have to think a little bit more about the model here. But fundamentally, there is a value creation because we can now do more with less. For example, I can send my car from work to home. My wife can take the car, drive somewhere, send the car back to my kid. The kid can go to school, send the car to me at work. We can get along with one car, or maybe, we can probably save 1 or 2 cars per family, depending on where we live and how we live. So those are the savings that come with AEVs. And that's why there's so much value. In our model, we have about $160 per share for FSD or this AEV concept, about $120 worth for the EV just as a car. We have about $40 for energy, about $20 or 40, 50, 20, 30 for Optimus. We're not very bullish on Optimus right now, not because it's anything wrong with it. It's just that we don't think that the technology is ready yet for that. What we need for Optimus to happen is we need 2D to 3D, we need simulation, we need reinforcement learning, and then we need sim to real, and then robots can get real in terms of dealing with physics and actually doing some real work. It's going to happen. I'm sure it's going to happen at some point, but right now we're focusing on autonomous driving because that problem has been solved to the extent that we have the availability of a technology that can be turned into products and services. We've spoken about this before. We believe that what's necessary for autonomous electric vehicles to succeed in the marketplace is we need native autonomous products. Like native products is something that is not possible before autonomy was there. Like I said, when you send your car empty to pay, home, so the wife can then be picked up and drive somewhere. Whether there's money to be made with the taxi business, that is actually all upside. So where we see Tesla right now is we see that we're paying probably $40, $50 worth of premium and where the stock should be in terms of just pure car business. And then we have this premium is the upside that we see at a fully valued stock would be $320 a share today. We're at 160, so we have 50% upside. 100% upside, and we pay about maybe a 30% premium in terms of optionality. That's where we see the stock. Before I end, I want to just talk a little bit about switching in general. I just attended a presentation by a professor from Harvard who talks about this idea of switching in terms of science. So what is, his name is Kyle Myers. So what is the cost of switching direction as a scientist? What is the elasticity of science? How can we entice more productivity in science? Things like that. So he's focused on that, but I want to transfer that into the entrepreneurial conversation. And to me, that this is really important because that's exactly what Tesla's going through right now. It's a switch. It's a switch from EV manufacturing to autonomous EV manufacturing. It requires different skills. And the question is, why do entrepreneurs do that? And why do some do it and some don't? I don't have good answers, but this is the Clayton Christensen, the innovator's dilemma problem. Like, why do some entrepreneurs have the guts to change, to rehire, to recalibrate their cadre? This is also what Netflix does with the Keeper test. It's evaluating everybody, including the CEO. Are you still the right person for the job? I would argue that Musk is definitely still the right person for the Tesla job, although his knowledge in terms of robotics, in my opinion, is a little bit lagging behind. He's not up to date there. The latest is happening at Berkeley right now between Sergey Levin, Jitendra Malik, and Petra Beal, and some others that I probably left out. But that's really where it's happening. I'm also very happy with the Georgia Tech work that's going on, a little bit of Stanford, and then many others. Dieter Fox at UW is doing great work. So combined, I think the science is working towards a possibility of enabling better simulation for reinforcement learning driven optimization of robots on or off policy in simulation. It could be on policy to really get superhuman behavior in robotics, like Davide Scaramuzza with his drones. We could have that in robotics in a couple of years, but we need a shift and we need to solve the 2D to 3D problem. I would say, just lastly, on the switching side, I think this is a deeply human question. Some people like to switch, some don't. There's no blueprint of, well, why is this happening? And you probably can create a culture. You can hire for that. You can hire people that are willing to switch. But it's hard because there is also the dignity aspect, the human dignity. If you've been an expert for 10 years and now you're not an expert anymore, it's difficult on people. What they usually do is they quit, then they become consultants, venture capitalists, something like that, if they have money. If not, they do something else. But the point here is that this dignity barrier is really hard to overcome. And for companies like Tesla, it just means keep replenishing the cars like a sports team. You're just bringing younger people. You draft people from college, literally. You do the draft. You bring in class 5, class 4 type athletes to play the game. That's the model. It seems like there's no better model right now. It would be nice if people like Drew Balino could stay on and work in a different capacity, because there's a lot of institutional knowledge that is being lost. To summarize, Tesla's earnings call, very, very inspiring, makes us work because it's a shift in direction. We're now in the autonomous EV manufacturing space. The two main goals for Tesla are to keep working on solving autonomy and also solving the AEV problem, the manufacturing problem, which is build a long-lasting car that can drive a lot more, so to bring down the cost per mile and bring up time savings, and therefore increase the value per car. The switching of entrepreneurs, the switching of professionals is an open question that is still remains to be answered. Why do some people choose to switch? Why do other people get caught in the innovator's dilemma? These are interesting questions. We don't have clear answers, but one thing is for sure: we can build a culture. We can build, and we can hire for that. We can anticipate the need to go with the technology, like Netflix does in their keeper test. This is the kind of culture that is necessary for companies to go with the technology. What the key here is to go with there's a compound return of technology. And if you're on top of this compound return of technology, you are creating value. If you try to squeeze yourself into, if you try to squeeze technology into your world the way it works for you, it usually doesn't work out. This is traditional OEMs do that. Intel did that. Polaroid, the Polaroid moment, the iPhone moment, Nokia did that. You take new technology and try to squeeze it into your existing workflows. Versus the way to do it is, it's like Tesla is doing, change the workflow. Thank you.